man, this is another one where I got to sit here and say, how is this dude on the main card? No disrespect, because this dude's a savage, but what we're talking about is a matchup between two middleweights, Abdul Razak Alhassan facing off against Australia's Jacob Makoun. Now, Jacob Makoun, if he sounds familiar, it's because this dude got his head taken off by Phil Hawes at, I believe it was in Fight Island this summer, right? Or last summer. So Jacob Makoun, highly touted, prospect coming out of Australia, trains at the same gym as Robert Whittaker does over there at, I believe it's called PMA Super Martial Arts. And this dude couldn't get fights in Australia, so he basically got a UFC shot. He was not a regional champ. He was not anything like that. He's in the UFC, gets starched in 18 seconds by Phil Hawes, does not land a single punch, and then you get matched up against Abdul Razak Alhassan. So first and foremost, UFC matchmakers, you were throwing this man to the absolute wolves, but if he's game, he's game. And I'll tell you what, from watching film study, he is a game individual. AJ, let me ask you this question, because we started off with Jacob Makoun. How does a knockout artist, somebody who lives and dies by the knockout, somebody who was previously undefeated, who got knocked out in about 30 seconds to Kama Worthy, unexpected, shocked the world, how does an individual like that rebound and approach his next fight? Does he go Francis Ngannou style, where he becomes tentative and doesn't want to let his hands go? Does he come out with a rage and just try to destroy this dude? What do you think is going to happen?
I think that's the fear, right? That he'll either be too patient or just too aggressive. I think he needs to find that middle ground, man, because to me, when I was watching that Makoun fight, you couldn't really get much from watching him against Philip Hawes. It was 30 seconds. Philip Hawes put the pressure on him, caught him. It was pretty much, like you said, done in 30 seconds. So I really didn't gather much from that. So I started looking at his other fights. And now in his last fight against Temeski is really where I started to break him down. And the problem with Jacob Makoun is he throws stuff and starts dipping like he's going to wrestle every single punch instead of staying tight and throwing it up high. I mean, Phil Hawes caught that in 30 seconds. It took me a fight to look at him, where Phil Hawes did it in 10 seconds. So he needs to avoid doing what he did previously that got him. And I genuinely think that he only got the contract he got a UFC contract to get beat up and then, payday and keep it going. And that's why they're being thrown to the wolves, man. He's not really, doesn't have the credentials, doesn't have the background to keep being exciting, so they're trying to force exciting fights upon him to see if he can actually hold his water. Now, I completely started rambling about Makoun and how he actually does it, but I completely forgot what your question was.
No, it's all good, man. That reminds me, he's not on this card, but I think he's going to be on either like a card in the next couple of weeks. Kebu Bular, he came in on a short notice, got signed to the UFC, got absolutely just starched in his first fight. Now it's like they're like, okay, thanks for doing us a favor. Now we'll actually line you up with proper competition, someone who matches your skill set, something like that. So that's not what's happening with Jacob Makoun on this one, you know what I mean? But I do think it'll be interesting to see how Abdul Razak Alhassan, how he rebounds, man. This is a dude who's got a lot of experience. He started his career in the Texas regional circuit, right? Fought at XKO. He's fought over there at Rocks Extreme. He even had a couple Bellator fights before, getting into the UFC and things of that nature. Now, this is what it comes down to, man. Did you know that Abdul Razak Alhassan, the reason why I'm so high on him is because he has two knockouts in under 1 minute. The first one took place in his UFC debut against Charles Ward, and the second one was, believe it or not, it happened in about 30 seconds, and he knocked out Nico Price. And when you knock out Nico Price like that makes me say, dude, Nico Price is a tough guy to put away. He's touted. He's infamous for having his eye blown out and being like, yeah, like, what's up? Like, let's rock, smiling, doing all that, right? So to me, I'm just like, I see this as a first round knockout all day for Abdul Razak Alhassan, unless Jacob Makoun maximizes on what you just talked about. So he dips, he throws that punch and he dips and he actually does wrestle. Instead of faking like you're going to wrestle, just wrestle. Because the question that I have about Alhassan still is, okay, what happens if, two questions. What happens if someone takes you down? I mean, you're the big knockout guy. That's the only way that you know how to win. 0 submissions, 0 decisions, right? You've never been submitted, but still, what happens when you get taken down? And two, when someone takes the Manur Lazez approach, right, who was that individual who I said came out of Africa? It's not true. He actually came out of not Abu Dhabi, maybe Abu Dhabi.
One of the Middle Eastern states. I can't remember. I was just watching that fight too.
Yeah, so he's the dude who got knocked out by Warley Alves, right? Now, this is an individual who took all that Alhassan had to have, shelled up, right? Used a little bit of head movement. What happened, man? About 2 minutes passed on, and Alhassan was done. That was it, right? So those are the two approaches. And Makoun, I'll tell you what, man, he has a chin, and you wouldn't say that because you're like, well, he got knocked out by Phil Hawes in 18 seconds. But it's like, come on, that's Phil Hawes. Like, this dude has a nasty chin, and I think that he can weather the storm if he plays his cards right. I just don't see it happening. I think he needs a little more UFC experience against lesser experienced fighters, I suppose. Because if you think about it, man, he entered the UFC at 4-0. Like, that's, unless you're a really highly touted athlete, fighter, and I'm not saying he's not, you know, it generally isn't the right approach to take. You don't want to grow up in the UFC. So ultimately, I'm going Abdul Razak Alhassan, knockout round 1. It's hard for anybody to convince me otherwise. What do you got, AJ?
Yeah, man, I'm right there. Al Hassan to me is one of those fighters that lives and dies by the KO, and 9 times out of 10, he lives in that first round. Now, that one time when my boy Chaos William put him to sleep, you know, he died he was out and sleeping in the first round, but that's a very rare occasion. So unless there's some divine intervention or something crazy going on, man, I'm running with Al Hassan KO round 1.
Yeah, man, sounds good. KO round 1 across the board. Once again, folks, the one clarifier that I have before we move on is we got to see where his mental at is after getting knocked out in the first round. He didn't even get a punch off. You know, it was the first punch that landed. Chaos Williams just hit him on the button, and that was it. But I think that he's a fast starter, and I think he's going to come out even faster this time trying to really prove a point. So